You've seen them in movies. The brawny hero swings a hammer in slow motion. Sparks explode like fireworks. The camera lingers on his chiseled jaw, barely a drop of sweat in sight. The blacksmith, rugged, respected, maybe even a little romantic. Now forget all of that. Because the real medieval blacksmith, he couldn't afford a shirt, let alone a hero's close-up. His life wasn't a training montage. It was 12-hour shifts in a smoke-filled hell, breathing air so toxic his lungs turned black before he turned 30. His hands looked less like human flesh and more like cracked leather wrapped around a pair of tongs that never stopped pinching him. And here's the thing. Everyone needed him. The knight, the farmer, the priest. They all showed up at his forge with broken things and empty pockets. But when the village celebrated, when songs were sung and names remembered, they forgot the one man who literally held their world together with fire and iron. So, how bad could it really be? Bad enough that most blacksmiths didn't live to see 50. Bad enough that their own sons watched them cough themselves to sleep every night and still picked up the hammer the next morning. If you want to understand what it really meant to spend a lifetime bent over an anvil, before OSHA, before gloves, before anyone cared if you could still feel your fingers, hit subscribe. Because this is the story of the man who built the medieval world with his bare hands and got absolutely nothing for it except an early grave. And if you've ever complained about a bad day at work, this one's for you. Let's begin. You are born, and your first breath isn't air, it's smoke. The forge is your delivery room, the anvil your first landmark, and the ring of hammer on metal your introduction to a world that will never, ever be quiet again. Your mother hands you to your father, and he holds you up like you're a new blade he's considering buying. He checks your grip strength. You're a baby, you have none, and grunts. It's the first sound he'll ever make to you. It won't be the last. Your first memories aren't of lullabies or bedtime stories. They're of heat, waves of it, radiating from the forge like a living thing. You learn to crawl on a dirt floor littered with metal shavings. You learn to walk by holding onto your father's leather apron while he works, sparks landing inches from your face. By the time you're 3, you know which stones get too hot to touch. By 4, you've been burned enough times to stop crying every time it happens. Your toys are the tools your father deems too dull to hurt you. A hammer with a cracked handle. A pair of tongs that don't quite close. You sit in the corner and pretend to work while he works for real. And in your child's mind, this is play. This is normal. This is what families do. By 6, you're useful. Not in the modern sense. Not helping out around the house useful. You're economically useful. Your job, pump the bellows. It sounds simple. It's not. The bellows are taller than you are, made of leather and wood and weight. You push, you pull, you push, you pull, for hours, until your arms scream and your shoulders threaten to pop out of their sockets. If you stop, the fire dies. If the fire dies, your father stops working. If your father stops working, the family doesn't eat, so you don't stop. You learn that lesson early. Stopping is not an option. By 7, you're an apprentice. That's the official word. Unofficially, you're free labor with no rights, no pay, and no end date. Your father teaches you things, but not the way teachers teach. He doesn't explain. He shows you once, then expects you to know. You don't know. You fail. He doesn't yell. Yelling takes energy. He just stares at you with that look, the one that says you're wasting his time, his coal, his life. You learn faster after that. The first thing you learn to make is nails. Thousands of them. Nails are the entry-level task, the blacksmith's version of sweeping the floor. You take a rod of iron, heat it, hammer one end to a point, then cut it off and start again. Over and over, 100 nails. 200. Your hands blister, then callous, then forget what soft feels like. You dream about nails. You see them when you close your eyes. You wake up and make more nails. And here's the part no one tells you about being a blacksmith's child. You're never alone, but you're always lonely. Your father is right there, 3 feet away, every single day. But he's working. He's always working. You can talk to him while you pump the bellows, and sometimes he grunts back, but mostly you learn to exist in the space between his focus and your own small world. You watch him shape iron like it's clay, and you wonder if he'll ever look at you the way he looks at the metal, with purpose, with intention, like you're something worth shaping. He won't. Not because he doesn't love you. He does in his way. But because in his world, love isn't something you say, it's something you do. And what he's doing is keeping you alive, teaching you a trade, making sure you don't end up like the beggars who pass through town with nothing but empty hands and emptier stomachs. His love is in the hammer he hands you, the fire he trusts you to tend, the grunt that means not bad in a language that has no words for praise. By 10, you've accepted this. By 10, you've stopped wishing for a different life. The village kids run past the forge sometimes, chasing each other, laughing, being children. You watch them from the doorway, one hand still holding the bellows handle, and you feel something you can't name. Not jealousy exactly. Just distance. Like they're a species you used to belong to, before you crossed over into this world of fire and iron and permanent exhaustion. Then your father calls your name, just your name, sharp, impatient, and you go back inside. The bellows need pumping. The nails aren't going to make themselves. And somewhere in the heat and the smoke and the endless rhythm of the hammer, you realize this isn't just your childhood, it's your entire life, already mapped out in front of you. No surprises, no detours. Just the forge, the anvil, the fire. Just work. But here's the thing about work. It changes you. Not just your hands, not just your back. It changes what you expect from the world. You stop expecting thanks. You stop expecting rest. You stop expecting anything except the next job and the next and the next, stretching out like an endless road paved with hot iron. And by the time you're old enough to understand what you've lost, the childhood you never had, the softness you never knew, you're already too far gone to miss it. Because the forge doesn't just shape metal. It shapes you. And the shaping never stops. By the time you're 20, the shaping is done. Not finished. It's never finished. But the rough form is there, hammered into place by a decade of swinging and lifting and holding and burning. You look at your body now and you barely recognize it. Not because you've grown, though you have, but because you've been remade. Like a blade reforged so many times, the original steel is just a memory. Your right arm first. Let's start there, because it's the most obvious. It's thicker than your left by a margin that strangers notice. The muscles don't look like the drawings in church manuscripts, those soft, curved things that knights have in their idealized portraits. Yours are bunched and dense and slightly wrong, pulled out of symmetry by 10,000 hours of overhead swinging. When you flex, which you almost never do because, why would you? The veins rise up like rivers on a map, mapping a lifetime of exertion onto your skin. Your left arm, by comparison, looks almost delicate. It works. It holds the tongs, guides the metal, does everything asked of it. But it's the supporting actor. The right arm is the star. And like most stars, it's high maintenance. The elbow clicks. The shoulder pops. The wrist has a catch in it that flares up when it rains. Your back is a separate tragedy. You don't notice it happening because it happens so slowly. A degree of curve one year, another degree the next, until one day you catch your reflection in a bucket of water and realize you don't stand straight anymore. You can't stand straight. Your spine has molded itself to the shape of your work, curved forward like a question mark, permanently bent over an anvil that stopped existing hours ago. You try to straighten it sometimes, out of vanity or habit, or just to feel what it's like, and your lower back screams so loud you see stars. So you stop trying, you accept the curve, you become the curve. Your hearing is next. The forge is loud. You knew that going in. But what you didn't know is that loud doesn't go away when the noise stops. There's always a ring now. High-pitched, constant, like a bell that was struck years ago and never finished vibrating. In the quiet moments, which are rare, the ring gets louder. You've learned to sleep through it, but you've also learned that silence isn't silent anymore. Silence is just a different kind of noise. Your father has it too, worse than you. Sometimes he cups his ear and squints when people talk, pretending he heard them the first time. You'll be him eventually. You already know that. But your hands. God, your hands. Let's talk about your hands, because they're the part of you that stopped being human years ago, and you're only now realizing it. The calluses started early, thin at first, then thick enough that you lost sensation in certain spots. That was useful. You could grab hot things if you were quick, could work without gloves, because gloves were for nobles and fools. But the calluses kept building, layer on layer, until your palms stopped feeling like flesh and started feeling like leather, old leather, cracked leather. Leather that's been left out in the sun and rain and then beaten with rocks. Your fingers don't straighten anymore. They curve inward now, permanently, like they're still holding a hammer even when you're asleep. You can force them straight if you try, but it hurts. And why would you try? You don't need straight fingers for anything. You need curved fingers. Curved fingers hold tongs. Curved fingers grip handles. Straight fingers are for reaching and pointing and touching things gently, and you don't do any of that. The nails are a mess. Half of them are black from old blood. A third are missing entirely, lost years ago to hammers and anvils and the general violence of your daily existence. The ones that remain are thick and ridged and wrong, growing in patterns that have nothing to do with the nails you were born with. You cut them with a chisel now. A knife won't do it. Your nails are too dense, too damaged, too far gone. And the burns. There isn't a square inch of your hands that hasn't been burned at least once. Some spots have been burned so many times, the skin is just different, shiny in places, textured in others. A patchwork of small scars and large scars and scars on top of scars, telling the story of every glowing ember that jumped wrong, every piece of hot metal you grabbed too slow, every moment of inattention paid for in seared flesh. You remember your hands before, faintly, like a dream you had as a child. They were small and soft, and your mother held them sometimes. You don't think about that often. There's no point. What you think about instead is how your hands feel at the end of the day. The throb, the deep, bone-level ache that starts in your fingertips and travels all the way up to your shoulders. It's not sharp pain. You'd welcome sharp pain because sharp pain means something specific is wrong. This is just presence. Your hands are present in a way that hands shouldn't be. They demand attention. They remind you constantly that they exist and they're angry, and they'll never stop being angry because you'll never stop using them. Some nights you lie awake and flex them open and closed, just to feel the joints move. They crackle when they move. Rice Krispies, someone once said. And you didn't get the joke then, but you get it now. Your hands sound like breakfast. The strange thing, the thing you'd never admit to anyone, is that you're proud of them. Not the pain, not the damage, but what the damage means. These hands have made things. Real things. Things that people use and need and depend on. These hands have shaped iron that became plows that fed villages. These hands have hammered steel that became swords that saved lives. The scars are a catalogue. Every mark is a job done. Every missing nail is a day you didn't quit. You look at a knight's hands sometime, when he's not looking. Soft. White. Unmarked. He's never burned himself. Never crushed a finger between hammer and anvil. Never pulled a glowing bar from the fire with nothing but grip strength and nerve. He's never made anything. He's only ever taken. And you think, my hands are ugly, but my hands are real. Then the pain flares again, sharper this time, and you stop thinking about knights and start thinking about whether you can grip the hammer tomorrow. You will, obviously. You always do. But the question itself is new. A few years ago, you never had to ask. Now you ask every night. And the answer, so far, has always been yes. You don't know how long yes will last. Neither do your hands. But there's a part of you that doesn't ache, not yet, and that's almost worse, the part that breathes. Because while your hands have learned to live with pain, your lungs are still learning to live with poison, and they're failing the lesson. The air in the forge is visible. You can watch it move, thick and grey, curling around the rafters like a living thing deciding where to settle. It never settles for long. It's always moving, always finding you, always slipping into your mouth and nose and throat whether you want it or not. By mid-morning, the light coming through the doorway looks solid, like you could reach out and grab a handful of it. By afternoon, you've stopped noticing the haze because the haze is everywhere, and you're in it, and you are it. You breathe through your mouth mostly. Everyone does. Your nose is useless after the first hour, clogged with soot and dust and the fine black powder that coats everything you own. So you mouth breathe like a dog on a hot day, gulping air that tastes like someone else's fire. There's no clean air. There's never been clean air. You've heard travelers talk about mountain breezes and ocean winds, and you believe them the way you believe in heaven. It sounds nice, but you'll never see either. The smoke comes from everywhere. The forge itself, obviously, belching clouds every time you add fresh coal, but also the metal. When you quench a hot blade in water, steam explodes upward, carrying particles you'd rather not think about. When you grind an edge, dust fills the air so thick you can taste the metal on your tongue. Iron, steel, sometimes bronze. You've developed preferences without meaning to. Iron tastes like blood. Steel tastes like something sharper. You don't think about what you're inhaling, because if you thought about it, you'd have to stop, and stopping isn't an option. Your father coughs constantly, has for years. It's a wet cough now, deep and rattling, the kind that shakes his whole body and leaves him bent over the anvil gasping. He calls it the blacksmith's friend. You don't laugh. Neither does he. Some mornings he coughs so hard he spits into the fire, and you see things in the sputum that you pretend aren't there. Dark things. Chunky things. Pieces of him that belong inside, not out. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and gets back to work, and you do the same, because what else is there to do? Your own cough started a few years ago. Light at first, easily ignored. Now it's part of you. You cough when you wake up. You cough when you lie down. You cough in between, during, always. It's not painful yet, not like his, but it's there, a constant companion, reminding you that every breath leaves something behind, something that stays. At night, when the forge finally cools and you stumble home, you lie on your straw mattress and listen to yourself breathe. It's not a smooth sound. It's rough, crackling, wet at the edges. You sound like the bellows you've been pumping all day, only older and more worn. You wonder if this is what your father sounded like at your age. You wonder if he noticed it too, back then, and told himself it was nothing. You wonder when the nothing becomes something. The strange part, the part you'd never say aloud, is that you've grown used to it. The smoke, the cough, the taste of iron on your tongue. It's become normal in the way everything becomes normal when you live with it long enough. You don't notice the smell of your own clothes anymore. You don't notice the film of soot on your skin. You don't notice that visitors to the forge step back when they enter, eyes watering, hands covering their mouths. You only notice when they leave too quickly. Sometimes a traveler comes through town, someone who's never been near a forge, and you see them take one breath and start choking. Genuine choking, like they're drowning. And you watch them stumble outside, gasping, and you feel something complicated. Pity, yes, but also something else. A kind of pride, maybe. Or resignation. Because that's what clean air does to people. It makes them weak. It makes them unable to survive where you survive every single day. You tell yourself that. You have to. Because the alternative is admitting that you're dying. Slowly, quietly, one breath at a time. That every day you spend in the forge is a day closer to the end. That your father's cough is your future, and his father's before him, and his before that, a lineage of ruined lungs stretching back generations, all because someone had to make the nails. And you keep working. Because what else can you do? The fire needs feeding. The metal needs shaping. The village needs its tools. Your family needs to eat. The smoke doesn't care about any of that. The smoke just waits. And you breathe. You always breathe. Until one day you can't. But here's the part that aches worse than your lungs, sharper than your hands, deeper than the curve in your back. The part that has nothing to do with smoke or hammers or the physical price you pay every day. It's the people. The ones who need you. The ones who never see you. You are, without question, the most important person in your village. Not the knight with his polished armor and his noble name. Not the priest with his Latin and his candles and his direct line to God. Not even the lord in his drafty hall, collecting taxes he did nothing to earn. You. The blacksmith. Because when the knight's sword breaks, he doesn't pray to God for a new one. He comes to you. When the priest's church bell cracks, he doesn't recite scripture at it. He brings it to your forge. When the Lord's gate hinge snaps, he doesn't tax it back into shape. He sends a servant to fetch you, and you drop whatever you're doing and you go. Everyone needs you. Everyone, all the time, for everything. And no one thanks you. They come in all day, every day, with their broken things and their urgent problems and their complete inability to see you as anything other than a tool with legs. The farmer with his snapped plow blade, standing in your doorway tracking mud across the floor you swept an hour ago, asking if you can fix it by sundown because the planting can't wait. The baker whose oven door won't close, losing heat, losing bread, losing coin. And by the way, can you come now, right now, this very minute? Because his entire livelihood depends on it. The widow with a bent pot, the only one she owns. Can you hammer it back into shape? She doesn't have much to pay, but she has a chicken. Would you take a chicken, please? Her children need to eat. You fix the plow. You fix the door. You fix the pot. You take the chicken. The next day they're back with something else. The plow broke again. Different spot this time. The door hinges are sticking. The pot has a new hole. And they look at you the same way they looked at you yesterday. Like you're a resource. Like you're the village, well, that never runs dry. Like you exist solely to solve their problems and then disappear until the next problem arrives. The knight is the worst. Not because he's cruel. He's not really, not deliberately. But because he's so completely unaware. He rides up with his entourage, all noise and dust and importance, and he hands you his sword like he's handing a servant a dirty cloak. Sharpen this, he says. Not please, not when you have time. Just sharpen this. And he stands there waiting, while you work, tapping his foot, sighing loudly, making sure you understand that his time is valuable and yours is not. You hand the sword back. He inspects it like he's judging a pig at market, squinting at the edge, running his thumb along the blade. You flinch. Don't cut yourself. You just sharpen that. And then he nods, just once, and rides away. No payment. No thank you. Knights don't pay. Knights consider it an honor to serve them. You serve. That's your job. To serve. Sometimes a woman comes, the knight's wife, or the merchant's daughter, or just someone from the village with a problem her husband can't fix. She stands in the doorway, half in shadow, half in light, and she watches you work for a moment before speaking. There's something in the way she looks at you. Not quite respect. Not quite anything you can name, but it's different from the way the men look at you. Softer, more aware. She asks if you can fix her brooch, her buckle, her husband's dagger that he's too proud to bring himself. You say yes, of course yes, and she stays while you work, not hovering, just present. And you're acutely aware of your hands, your ruined ugly hands, holding her delicate thing, trying not to damage it further. When you're done, she thanks you. Actually, thanks you. Looks you in the eye and says thank you like she means it. Maybe she even touches your arm, briefly, before she leaves. You think about that touch for days, weeks. You tell yourself not to. You tell yourself she's married, she's above you, she's not for the likes of you. But you think about it anyway, the warmth of it. the normalness, the feeling of being touched by someone who wasn't born holding a hammer. Then her husband shows up with a broken sword and doesn't look at your face once. And you remember your place. The worst part, the truly grinding, soul-wearing part, is that you can't stop, you can't refuse. Because if you say no to the farmer, he tells the baker, and the baker tells the merchant, and soon everyone's going to the next village for their repairs, and your family starves. So you say yes. You always say yes. You say yes to the urgent jobs and the impossible deadlines and the payments that arrive late or short or not at all. You say yes to the knight who doesn't see you and the farmer who doesn't thank you and the widow whose chicken was too tough to eat anyway. You say yes until yes is the only word you remember. And at night, lying on your straw mattress, listening to your lungs crackle and your hands throb and your back complain in a language only you understand, you think about the day, all the people you helped, all the problems you solved, all the things that wouldn't work if you hadn't worked. And you realize, not one of them knows your name. Not really. They know the blacksmith. They know, hey you. They know the soot-stained figure in the leather apron who exists to serve and then vanish. They don't know that you have a mother who worries about you. They don't know that you once had a girl, briefly, before her father decided his daughter deserved better than a man who smells like smoke and comes home too tired to talk. They don't know that you dream sometimes of traveling, of seeing mountains and oceans and places where the air is clean. They don't know any of it because they've never asked. They've never looked past the function to the man. You are the village blacksmith. You are also a person. But in a world where function is everything, person doesn't matter. Person is invisible. Person is irrelevant. Person is the thing you used to be before you picked up the hammer and became something else, something useful, something necessary, something utterly, completely forgettable. The fire burns low. You should add more coal. You should get up. You should prepare for tomorrow, when they'll come again with their broken things and their urgent needs and their complete inability to see you. You stay where you are. Just for a moment. Just long enough to remember that you exist. Then you get up. You add the coal. You prepare for tomorrow. Because tomorrow they'll come. They always come. And you'll be there. You're always there. You're always there. Until one day you're not. It doesn't happen the way you might imagine. There's no dramatic collapse, no final heroic swing, no moment where you fall to your knees clutching your chest while the forge blazes behind you like a funeral pyre. It's quieter than that, more ordinary. You simply wake up one morning, or try to, and your body says no. Maybe it's your lungs. You've been waiting for them to give out, watching your father's decline like a preview of your own future. One day, you're pumping the bellows, and you stop to cough, and the cough doesn't stop. It keeps going, wave after wave, until you're bent double and the world is spinning, and there's something wet and dark on the dirt floor beneath your face. You try to stand. You can't. Your legs work fine. They always work fine, but your chest won't let you. Every breath is a negotiation. Every inhale a crisis. You lie there, listening to your own wheezing, and you think, so this is how it happens. Or maybe it's your heart. You've never thought about your heart. It always just worked, pumping away in the background while you focused on the parts that hurt. But hearts get tired too. They get tired of pushing blood through lungs that don't work, and arteries that have hardened from years of smoke and stress and the constant grinding pressure of survival. You're at the anvil, mid-swing, and suddenly the swing stops. Not because you chose to stop, because something in your chest clenches and releases in a way it's never done before, and you drop the hammer, and you grab the anvil for support, and you stand there frozen while the iron cools and the fire crackles and the world goes strangely quiet around you. The pain comes after, a deep, crushing weight that spreads from your chest to your jaw, to your left arm, the good arm, the one that never hurt before. And you think, so this is how it happens. Or maybe it's just age. Simple, ordinary age, catching up with a body that's been living on borrowed time since it was old enough to pump bellows. You're not young anymore, haven't been for decades, but you're not old either, not really. 50 maybe, 52, but your body thinks it's 90. Your body has been thinking it's 90 since you turned 30, and now it's finally decided to act like it. You wake up one morning and your hands won't close. Not because they're injured, they're always injured, but because they're just done. The joints have finally locked into their final position, curved around a hammer you'll never hold again. You stare at them, these ruined claws that have served you your whole life, and you think, so this is how it happens. Your son finds you. He's a man now. When did that happen? With your father's shoulders and your hands already starting to curl. He stands in the doorway and he sees you and he knows. You don't have to say anything. He knows. He takes over. That's the word you use in your mind, takes over, because it's not a choice. The forge can't stop. The fire can't die. The nails need making. The plows need fixing. The village needs its blacksmith. Your son becomes the blacksmith. You become the old man in the corner, the one who sits on a stool and watches and tries not to cough too loud. The first time someone comes to him instead of you, it hurts more than you expected. A farmer with a broken scythe. He walks in, nods at you, polite, distant, and then turns to your son and explains the problem. Your son listens. Your son nods. Your son picks up your hammer and goes to work. And you sit there, useless, while someone else does your job with your tools in your forge and you watch. The farmer leaves. Your son looks at you. Neither of you says anything. What is there to say? The days pass. You sit. You watch. You remember. You remember the first nail you ever made, crooked and ugly, and how your father grunted in a way that might have been approval. You remember the first sword you forged alone, how it felt to hold something deadly that came from your own hands. You remember the widow's chicken and the night's indifference and the way that woman touched your arm that one time years ago before you became just the blacksmith. You remember the heat. God, the heat. You spent your whole life complaining about it, and now you're cold, always cold. You sit by the forge, close as you can get, and you still shiver. The fire that was your enemy is now your only comfort, and it's not enough. Your son works. He works the way you worked, the way your father worked, the way your grandfather must have worked before anyone thought to write it down. He swings and sweats and burns and bleeds, and you watch, and you feel something complicated. Pride, yes. Worry, always. And something else. Something that tastes like regret, but isn't quite. Regret implies you had a choice. You never had a choice. This was always going to be your life. This was always going to be his. The end comes on an ordinary day. Not special, not marked. You're sitting on your stool, watching your son hammer a plow blade back into shape, and you feel tired. Not the usual tired, the bone-deep exhaustion that follows you everywhere, but something else, something final. You close your eyes. Just for a moment, you tell yourself, just to rest. The next thing you know, your son is kneeling beside you. His face is strange. You've never seen that expression before. It takes you a moment to recognize it as grief. You try to speak. You can't. You try to move. You can't. You can only look at him, this man you raised in fire and smoke, this boy who never had a childhood because he had a forge instead, this son who will bury you and then go back to work because the work never stops. He takes your hand, your ruined, curled, useless hand. He holds it. And you think, this is how it happens. Then you think, at least he's here. Then you don't think anything at all. They bury you outside the village, near the edge of the woods, where the ground is soft and the graves are cheap. No marker at first, just a mound of dirt. Later, your son forges a simple cross and drives it into the earth with his own hands. Your hands, really. The same hands, the same hammer, the same swing. Your name fades. Within a generation, no one remembers it. You're just the old blacksmith now, the one before the current one, buried somewhere near the trees. The village children dare each other to run past your grave at night. They tell stories about you. None of them are true. But here's the thing they don't know. The thing no one knows except your son, and he'll take it to his own grave. Every nail in every beam of every house in that village, every hinge on every gate, every plow blade that turns every furrow, every horseshoe that carries every horse, every sword that every knight ever drew in anger or defense, all of it passed through your hands. You didn't just work metal, you worked the world. You shaped it, piece by piece, nail by nail, blade by blade. The village didn't run on prayers or taxes or the Lord's goodwill. It ran on iron. It ran on fire. It ran on you. And no one knew. No one ever knows. That's the thing about being the blacksmith. You're essential and invisible, necessary and forgotten. You build the world, and then you disappear into it, becoming part of the walls and the gates and the blades, your labor absorbed so completely that no one sees it anymore. But your son sees it. When he picks up your hammer, he feels your grip. When he stands at the forge, he feels your heat. When a farmer thanks him for a job well done, he hears your silence. The forge doesn't remember you. The forge doesn't remember anyone. The forge just burns. But the hammer remembers. The anvil remembers. The iron remembers the shape you gave it, the force you applied, the moment when your will overcame its resistance and turned it into something useful. And sometimes, late at night, when the fire has died to embers and the village is asleep, your son holds that hammer and listens. He swears he can hear something, not words, just presence. Just the echo of 1,000 swings, 1,000,000 hours, a lifetime of work compressed into a tool that outlived the hand that held it. He swings. The iron sings. The fire crackles. And somewhere, in the space between memory and forgetting, you swing with him. You're always there. You're always there.